Mary J. Coggeshall inspired and led the Iowa women's suffrage movement for 41 years. In 1865, Mary and her husband John, both birthright Quakers, traveled by covered wagon to Des Moines with their 2 children. In 1870, Mrs. Coggeshall became a charter member of the Iowa Women's Suffrage Association and continued as its president in 1890 and 1891, and again from 1903 to 1905. She was honorary president from 1905 until her death in 1911. Mrs. Coggeshall was the first editor of the Women's Standard, the monthly newspaper of the Iowa Women's Suffrage Association. She served as secretary of the Polk County Women's Suffrage Society during its early years. She often acted as spokeswoman for women's suffrage and addressed the Iowa House and Senate committees and innumerable women's suffrage meetings. Of the early Iowa women's suffrage workers, she was the only one active on a national level. She wrote articles for national newspapers and was the first woman west of the Mississippi elected to serve on the board of the National American Women's Suffrage Association in 1895. Her longtime dedication to the women's suffrage cause in Iowa and the nation provided a strong source of continuity and inspiration to other suffrage workers.
Commission's work includes that of two committees, the Master Plan Committee and the Site Features Committee. And Carol Grant, somewhere here, there she is, waving her hand. Carol Grant is on the commission and the chair of the Site Features Committee. And that committee is the one that's responsible for managing the policy and application process for new monuments proposed for the grounds. That then goes to the commission for final approval. So this plaque has been through all that process, and we're just delighted to have this new 59th monument, memorial, or public art added to the complex grounds.
We who took our baby boys with us to those early meetings now find those boys are voters, while their mothers are still asking for freedom. We only hope the next generation of women may find their work made easier because we had trodden the path before them, end of quote. Indeed, the mother of women's suffrage in Iowa did trot the path on behalf of the next generation of women.
She walked up the steps to the state capitol time and time again, hoping each time that the collective would listen to reason. In 1911, when the Iowa legislature once again rejected the women's suffrage amendment, she noted to friends, it does test the mettle of women to walk steadily forward year after year and be misunderstood. Miss Coggeshall died never knowing if the amendment would be passed. She served as an early leader and an inspiration to the women who lived during her time, and also to those who came after her.
But it's time for her achievements to be obscure no longer, and for everyone who believes in justice to acknowledge her importance. In a different sort of public act, she actually was the lead petitioner in a lawsuit against the city of Des Moines to invalidate the results of an election on bond issues in which women were denied ballots. The Polk County District Court dismissed her suit, but the Iowa Supreme Court reversed that decision and declared invalid the election because they said voting had been denied to women as an entire class of qualified electors. A small and local victory, perhaps, but one of the many steps on the path to equality. Again, can you imagine the censure and social rejection to which Mrs. Coggeshall was exposed? Can you imagine what some would have thought and said to her? I have a hard time imagining how much courage it took to take on the city of Des Moines, the judicial system, and public opinion. What bravery! What a true heroine she was. Finally, as a historian, I realize how fluid history is, as do many of you today and throughout our society. Many aspects of our history are being newly researched, made public, and we are asked to see what we had not seen before, such as the long path of struggle for people like Mary Jane Coggeshall. We are not diminished by this knowledge and recognition. It is not our job to settle history, but to be continually amplifying it and, yes, correcting it. How many of you had heard of Mary Jane Coggeshall before this occasion? Even if you grew up here in Iowa and studied Iowa history, had you ever heard her name or knew what she did? We impoverish ourselves when we ignore or forget people like her. Let us be grateful for people like Cindy Coggeshall Fanter and others here today who dug into history and brought Mrs. Coggeshall's achievements to light. We are right to honor her, to secure her recognition, and to make sure that everyone who walks the grounds of our state capitol can finally know the name of Mary Jane Coggeshall. Thank you.
Or at a very young age. As you can tell, Mary Jane suffered her share of pioneer heartache. Legislative disappointments abounded too. From 1870 to 1919, every session of the Iowa legislature considered a women's suffrage bill. The cat and mouse tension